Sometimes the best career advice comes from scheduling absolutely nothing. Ashley Wells' journey from self-doubt to solo practice success demonstrates how embracing imperfection can transform your professional confidence. Professionally Psyched is the podcast that brings you cutting-edge psychology research and real-world insights from our psych community of clinicians, researchers, and educators alike. In our special alumni spotlights, we chat to graduates from our psychology degree programs about how their skills learned in the classroom have become powerful tools supporting diverse career journeys and successes. Hi everyone and welcome to Professionally Psyched. I'm Jessica Muller, PhD candidate in Public Health at James Cook University, and before we get started we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record, and for me today that's the Bindal and Wulgurukaba peoples. And I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and cultures from wherever you may be tuning in from across the country. In this alumni spotlight, Dr. Amanda Krause explores with Ashley Wells how her adult ADHD diagnosis and motherhood experience shaped her specialised work in women's neurodiversity and perinatal mental health. So grab your headphones and get ready to get professionally psyched about building sustainable private practice while honouring your own needs for rest and creativity. Enjoy.
Ashley, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. To start, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Amanda, for inviting me. So my name is Ashley Wells and I'm a registered psychologist. I have a solo private practice here down in Brisbane, working in women's health, perinatal space, attachment parenting, running psychosecurity, and also I guess like a real strong interest with women's neurodiversity, supporting particularly mums, like as they go through that, matrescence and transition into parenthood. All of a sudden these differences in their executive functioning, are a problem. So really, supporting neurodiversity and assessments, particularly in the women's space.
And I imagine there may have been a few steps from starting an undergraduate degree to now having a solo practice. So could you tell us a little bit more about that journey?
Yeah, journey. Yes, it absolutely was a journey. Well, look, I have been working for myself for about 3 years now, but it was really motivated by the journey of going through parenthood myself and also going through an adult diagnosis for my own neurodivergence as well. So those two things, like that, having that lived experience and I guess really being able to connect and just find this really deep passion and motivation for working with other women and mums. I never thought I would be in this position where I am at this point in time. So I started out working for, I guess, different non-for-profits, non-government organizations, and then worked my way into private practice where I spent 5 years, I think, like as a employee. And I really feel like that has given me just like an amazing foundation of skills and presentations to, I guess, lead me now to feeling a lot more confident in working for myself in that private practice space.
Yeah, and you said you sort of never imagined that you'd be where you are now. Do you remember like when you started psychology, what you thought you wanted to do? I'm just curious.
Oh my goodness, I know. Well, I started back in 2009. So I never really knew where I was going with it, to be honest, or what I was going to do. I just kind of always had this deep interest and fascination with understanding more just around humans, human behavior, how the brain works, things like that. So it was more from the space of I'm just interested enough in this topic, don't know where it's going to take me. I didn't even know if I was going to go down the route of registration, and I didn't start that process until nearly 3 years after graduation. So I guess it was just something that sort of morphed along the way, and I just kind of just took it as it came, and somehow accidentally ended up where I am now.
I think that's a great place to be. Was there a subject or a topic that sort of was like, oh, hey, maybe clinical registration is the journey I want to go down? You said, you've had your own lived experience as well, but I'm just thinking from like a educational standpoint, was there something that sort of like switched on and was like, okay, this is where I'm headed?
Yes and no. I was never not open to that pathway. I think at that point in time, I was just in a stage of my life where I kind of really doubted my capabilities. Yeah, I sort of lacked that confidence to be able to sort of put myself out there and try to go down that route. So it wasn't that it was ever closed off, but I think I also just really didn't quite have that confidence in my own skill set or capability. Obviously now in hindsight, knowing ADHD was a big was a big factor. So, leaving things to the last minute and the procrastination and like submitting, I was still finalizing my thesis the day that it needed to be submitted. I think it was like a 1 p.m. submission or something. And I was in the library at 7 o'clock in the morning, still finalizing. So, those kinds of things kind of really made me have this internalized, you're not good enough kind of mentality. So I really worked very hard on my own reflections but also then professionally as well. I think I just got better at being able to accept that it's okay if you don't know something and that you're still working, like it's an ever evolving kind of process.
You've touched on something which we talk a lot about as imposter syndrome, right? Which is so present. And I think you also sort of touched on then having this experience with yourself of neurodiversity and now working with clients in that space. And I'd love to hear more about sort of your techniques of tackling imposter syndrome because it's such a huge thing for so many people.
Yeah, I feel like a sense of identity is so important. Like, I guess when you don't really know, even just like some key skills, strengths, adjectives, like how would you describe yourself? Give you 3 keywords, those kinds of things. If we don't have like this real authenticity or like that deep connection with like who we are, then it's going to be so much harder to be able to then have that ability to evolve or be flexible or creative in your skill set and how you then relate then to your patients. So I think as I went through, it was challenging, of course. It wasn't like my ADHD diagnosis didn't come until I was 2 years into my own motherhood journey as well. So I went through all of these things without having that understanding of myself. So I think that I'm able to be very authentic in who I am and be okay with the areas that I do find challenging. Like, it's okay to be good enough sometimes. And it's okay that we are clumsy. I had this real sense of I had to have everything perfect. Like when I first started, I had to have everything planned out. I had to know exactly where the treatment plans were going. I had to understand the ins and outs of the client presentations. Otherwise, I wasn't good enough. That was the template that I was drawing from. But I've really since learned that that's actually not the case. And it's okay that we're still learning. I think like when you have that clearer or more confident sense of identity, it's a lot easier than to just sort of relax into the space and the role.
Yeah, and I imagine, especially then when you put it through the lens of motherhood, of like, it's not going to be perfect. Like
Huge shock.
flexibility, all of
Totally
that.
wasn't aware of yes, that it wasn't going to be perfect. Quite rigid, I think.
So you've mentioned a few sort of areas that are really captivating your interest in the space that you work in now. I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more maybe about sort of your day-to-day. How does having a solo practice work? Like, what do you do day to day?
What do I do day to day? That is a very good question. Well, I try to have diversity in what I am doing each day because otherwise I either get burnt out or bored. And I don't like either of those spaces. So it's a mix between one-on-one therapy with patients. So there's the counseling work. I also then do facilitate a circle of security attachment parenting program. So I run a group every term and assessment. So I do a lot of that neurodivergent assessment. And then there's the report writing, so that can be quite heavy as well. And I also volunteer myself for being guest speakers to mums groups. So I'll go along and again, just like sharing things to listen out for, things to be mindful of as far as mental health goes. And I guess just trying to normalize the transition and adjustment into parenthood and how it can be challenging, and challenges don't mean that you're doing a bad job. We're often really conditioned to rely upon outcomes as a measure of our success, right? And so when we have an infant who doesn't sleep or has reflux and vomits all over you and, can be really quite temperamental or fussy or whatever it might be, that we find quite overwhelming when the quote unquote outcome, which is our child, is not conducive to the effort and skill set and love and all of those wonderful qualities. It's really quite like a whiplash, isn't it? So I think I just really want to kind of like open up that conversation to normalize that. Let's stop using outcomes as a measure of how good enough we are or our skill set kind of thing. So anyway, I go in and I talk to parents and families and mums particularly. So anyway, going back to what does my day-to-day look like? Well, I'm a mum from the second I open my eyelids. So it's constantly trying to get my kids ready and get them to put the food in their mouth, get them to eat their own breakfast because they're easily distracted, do the school drop off, then head off into the clinic, see my clients or run the course or, do whatever it might be, and then pick them back up. We've either got swimming lessons or we come home and we just maybe, hang out in the yard. So it's just always a go, go, go. And then I'm usually back on the computer by about 8 o'clock most evenings, either catching up on assessment reports, GP letters, or even just my own PD. I do a lot of my PD at night as well because I run out of time otherwise. It's busy. That's what it is.
It's so busy. And so many of us are pursuing education, our careers, while also having families and doing multiple things where we have to sort of stay on top of a lot of things, go, 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 go. How do you manage all of that? What's your like work-life balance strategy or tip for people?
Yeah. Look, it's hard, but I think self-care and finding these balances in life, they're not set in stone, are they? So something that might have worked for me 12 months ago is not necessarily going to be the same that works for me now. And then all of a sudden I might get to this point in time and go, hold on a minute, I did all the things. Why am I still feeling a bit like tired or overwhelmed or depleted? It is something that does need to be flexible and ever evolving. But I think my go-tos are, if I can delegate, I will. Don't have to wear all caps all of the time. That's just not realistic. And I guess the other thing I've really learned is at the beginning of every year, I go ahead in my calendar and I will block out, 3 or 4 days every 3 or 4 months so that I know I have some extra time off. And I think that that's really good because when you're in the trenches of either burnout, which I think a lot of us have experienced and can relate to, it's often not until you're already completely depleted of all of your resources that the light bulb sort of hits and you're like, oh, I'm actually really struggling. But when you're in private practice, particularly, you're usually booked weeks or months in advance. So it's really hard then to rein in the snowball when it's so big and you need time off now, but you're booked for however many weeks or months. So I do find that that's really helpful. That's something that's been really good for me. I know that I have a few days off. And if I get to those days and I'm actually feeling good, I'll just take it out of the calendar and do some work or book patients or whatever it might be. But I definitely know that there's been times where I'm like, oh, I just want to wrap myself in a blanket and cocoon on the couch and do absolutely nothing for like 6 hours of the day or more and get some, Doritos and snack and just chill. And I know that that's coming up. So I will schedule Dorito cocoon time, in the calendar. So I think that that's really good.
Certainly. I just learned about something called the recovery rocket. And the idea is that you have at least 3 mini breaks throughout the year and you put in a big break. And then you also have like little daily things. And I just really loved the idea of like, you can break that down and schedule that. And it is, I think a lot of us will feel guilty, but no, we need that time to be there.
Yeah, most definitely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, like schedule the nothingness and be okay with the nothingness because it's extremely important.
Yeah, certainly. Speaking of what's important, I would love to hear your thoughts on sort of in this space, right? You're talking about women who are getting adult ADHD diagnoses. That's becoming more prevalent because for a lot of the time it was sort of ignored in women. And so I'm just thinking about like, how do we help as the next graduates through psychology? What's the next big thing that they can tackle, maybe thinking around this neurodiversity space?
The research is so new. It's so evolving. We know that whatever data was available in the neurodiversity space, even up to like 5 years ago, is probably outdated now. So it is this rapidly evolving area. And so I think for, I guess, new grads or students that are coming out and working in this space, I know it's hard when you're still learning and you probably feel like there's this constant influx of information and you've just got confident with one skill set or one tool, and then all of a sudden it's changing and evolving. But particularly, I guess, in that neurodiversity space, that's what's happening, and we really need to be on board with and be part of it, be part of that growth and evolvement. We don't want to get stuck in, I guess, a technique or a phrase, or even just our language is always changing as well. We don't want to get stuck there. I mean, that goes for all modalities or different client like presentations and things as well. But I would say particularly in the neurodivergent space for women presentations and looking at how do we go about diagnosis, what kind of things are going to change in the DSM, it is a very rapidly evolving kind of space. So I think being very open to taking it on board, keeping up to date with whatever the latest research might be, get yourself into webinars and go to conferences and, talk. You learn a lot just by talking to your patients and hearing their stories. So talk to them and listen and find out what their take on things might be as well, because you'll learn a lot that way.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice point to learn on, because we've kind of come full circle in the way of saying, like, we're always learning. Our journeys are always continuing. So, Ashley, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I'm really grateful for your time as well. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thanks for listening to Professionally Psyched. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support of our psych community. If you'd like to show your support, or if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our emails. And don't forget, you can listen to full episodes on Spotify.